Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive. This time we're tackling FinOps practice operations. Specifically, we'll be digging into the FinOps Foundation framework.
Yeah, it's the go-to resource for anyone serious about managing cloud costs effectively.
Absolutely, it's packed with insights, and we're here to break it down. So by the end of this deep dive, you'll be able to build a solid FinOps team, assess where your organization stands on that maturity scale, and walk away with strategies that you can actually implement. No more head scratching when those cloud bills roll in.
Exactly. No more surprises. And it all begins with having the right team in place, a dedicated FinOps team.
You can't argue with that, but how big are we talking here? I mean, does every organization need a massive team dedicated solely to FinOps?
Not necessarily.
Yeah.
The framework actually emphasizes that it's more about structure and support than just sheer size. You've got different models, like you could have a centralized model, which is really effective for organizations with a centralized cloud setup. Or there's the virtual model offering a lot of flexibility if you have, let's say, distributed teams. And then you've got this kind of hybrid approach, the hub and spoke, combining that central coordination with distributed expertise.
So it's like picking the right tool for the job. You wouldn't use a hammer to build a house, right? You choose the model that best fits your organization's structure. But how do you go from like 0 to 1? How do you actually build one of these teams? What are the steps?
Yeah. The framework outlines some key tasks for building a successful FinOps team. Positioning the team strategically within the organization is crucial. And of course, you need funding to support their work. Planning for growth is another big one, thinking ahead. But probably most crucial is defining those skill sets needed for the team and recognizing that these will evolve.
Evolving skills. What does that look like in practice?
Think of it like this. As your organization's use of the cloud grows and changes, the demands on your FinOps team are going to grow and change right along with it. They might start with, say, basic cost tracking, maybe even using spreadsheets, But then, as you progress, they'll need to master those cloud cost management platforms, dive into automation, and eventually leverage AI and predictive analysis. It becomes a much more strategic, data-driven role.
So it's not just set it and forget it. It's a continuous process of learning and adapting for the FinOps team.
Absolutely. This constant development and adaptation is really key to navigating the ever-changing landscape of the cloud. And that actually leads perfectly into our next point, which is all about the ongoing management of the FinOps practice itself.
It's like building a muscle, right? The more you use it, the stronger your FinOps practice becomes.
Exactly. It's not a one-and-done deal. Yeah.
It
It takes work and a consistent effort to make sure everything's running smoothly. We're talking about constantly refining your approach, making sure your FinOps strategy is in sync with your overall cloud strategy.
So, okay, we've got our FinOps Dream team assembled. They're ready to hit the ground running. What's next? How do they actually level up their game?
Well, remember that crawl, walk, run analogy from the FinOps Foundation framework?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a great way to visualize the stages of FinOps maturity.
Right. So in the crawl phase, you're just getting started. You're getting a handle on your cloud costs, tracking spending, figuring out how to allocate those costs to different teams or projects. It's really about laying the foundation.
Okay, so then walk is where things start to get interesting, like actually putting those processes into practice.
Exactly. You're walking the walk, right? You're actively optimizing your cloud resources, you're putting measures in place to cut costs, and you're using data analysis to fine-tune how you're using the cloud.
So it's not just about seeing where the money's going, it's about making smarter decisions to use it more efficiently.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of times, this is where organizations will start incorporating cloud cost management tools into their workflow. They'll start automating certain tasks and really digging into those reports to get more insights.
Makes sense. So if crawl is about getting a grip and walk is about optimization, then run must be where FinOps becomes second nature, right?
You got it.
Okay.
When you hit run, FinOps is basically part of your company culture. You've moved beyond just reacting to costs. You're proactively managing them. We're talking about things like automating cost optimization, using predictive analysis to get ahead of future spending, and creating an environment where everyone understands the importance of making cost-conscious decisions.
So it's that shift from thinking about cost as a necessary evil to seeing it as a tool for efficiency, maybe even innovation.
Exactly. That's what a mature FinOps practice can achieve. And to get there, the framework talks about the importance of managing the day-to-day of FinOps work, making sure data and processes are integrated across different teams, that kind of thing.
Which brings us to another really important aspect of this whole thing, collaboration. Because even with a stellar team and great processes, FinOps isn't a solo mission, right?
Definitely not. It really does take a village, or in this case, a well-coordinated team, to make FinOps work. That's where one of the key takeaways from the FinOps Foundation framework comes in, breaking down those silos.
Because, let's be honest, we've all heard those stories about tension between finance and engineering, especially when it comes to cloud spending. Is that what we're talking about here?
Exactly. The framework stresses that finance, product, engineering, even leadership, they all have a role to play in making FinOps a success. Finance brings their budgeting know-how, engineering has the technical expertise, and leadership sets the strategic direction.
But I'm imagining that even with the best intentions, there could still be some bumps in the road. Like, what happens when an engineering team is excited about trying out a new cloud service, something cutting edge, but then the finance team is worried about the cost? How does a FinOps team navigate those kinds of situations?
That's a perfect example of where a strong FinOps team can really shine. They act as a kind of intermediary, a facilitator, not a blocker. By using data and insights, they can help both sides see the bigger picture. They can help weigh the potential benefits against the costs so everyone can make an informed decision that benefits the entire organization. It's all about finding that win-win.
So they're like strategic negotiators using data and their understanding of both the technical and financial sides to find the best path forward.
Exactly. And to make sure those conversations, and really all FinOps decisions, happen smoothly and quickly, the framework highlights the need for a clear decision-making model. That way everyone's on the same page, things move faster, and you avoid those costly bottlenecks.
Because time wasted is money wasted, especially in the fast-paced world of cloud computing. Okay, so we've got our team, we're managing our FinOps practice, we're breaking down silos, and we're making decisions efficiently. What's next?
Now we've got to rally the troops, make sure everyone's on board and ready to participate in the FinOps journey.
You're talking about getting buy-in from all the stakeholders, making sure everyone understands the lingo and how it all works.
Exactly. The framework refers to this as driving stakeholder adoption. It's about turning those individual contributors into FinOps champions, people who get it and are excited about it.
Okay, I like where this is going, but how do you actually do that? The framework mentions different stages in this process, right?
It does. It breaks stakeholder adoption into 4 stages: plan, socialize, prepare, and operationalize.
Right. I'm following along. It makes sense. But let's break it down a little. What does it even mean to socialize FinOps? Like, are we talking team building exercises with cloud cost spreadsheets?
Not quite. It's more about making FinOps approachable and relatable, showing how it connects to everyone's work. It shouldn't be treated like some kind of mystical tech jargon.
So how do you do that? How would you advise someone who's trying to introduce these concepts to a team that's, let's say, a little resistant to change?
That's where clear communication and real-world examples are super important. I always tell people to really focus on the why behind FinOps and to frame it in a way that makes sense for each team. Like, what are their specific goals and challenges? How can FinOps help them achieve those goals and overcome those challenges?
So instead of saying we need to reduce our cloud costs, you'd say something like, by optimizing our cloud usage, we can free up budget to invest in that new product feature your team is excited about.
See, now you're getting it. You have to connect those dots between FinOps and what each team cares about. And never underestimate the power of those early wins. Show them the value, even if it's a small victory, and celebrate those wins as a team.
It's about building momentum and getting people excited about what you can accomplish together. But at the end of the day, you need a way to prove this is all worthwhile. You need to be able to measure your success.
Absolutely. And that's where the FinOps Foundation comes through again with some really helpful guidance on measuring success.
Oh, good. So they don't just leave us hanging.
Not at all. They provide some key performance indicators, KPIs, to help you track your progress and really demonstrate the impact of your FinOps efforts.
So let's talk KPIs. What are some of the big ones that tell us whether our FinOps efforts are on the right track?
Well, some are pretty straightforward, right? Cost savings, right? How much money has your FinOps practice actually saved the organization? But it's not just about the bottom line.
There's more to it than just dollars and cents.
Exactly. We also want to look at how well those FinOps principles have been embedded within the organization. Are people changing their behaviors? Are they making different, more cost-conscious decisions?
So it's not just about what you save, but how and why you saved it.
Exactly. And a good way to measure that is by looking at how widely FinOps reporting is being used. Are people actually using those reports, those insights, to make informed decisions?
Because data is useless if it just sits there, right?
100%. Another key KPI is how agile your decision-making process is, particularly when it comes to urgent situations. When those unexpected cloud cost issues pop up, do you have a clear process for making quick, cost-effective decisions?
Because those delays can really hurt, especially when it comes to cloud costs.
You got it. And finally, the FinOps Foundation emphasizes the importance of actively sharing information across teams. Are those FinOps best practices and insights being shared openly? Is everyone on the same page?
So it's about fostering a culture of transparency and open communication around cloud costs.
Exactly. These KPIs give you a well-rounded view of how your FinOps practice is doing. It's not just about being cheap. It's about being smart and strategic with your resources in a way that supports the overall goals of the organization.
This has been incredibly helpful. I mean, we've gone from building a top-notch FinOps team to measuring success. It's a lot to take in, but for our listeners who are eager to apply all this amazing information, what does it actually mean for them? How do they put these strategies into practice in their own organizations?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
Yeah.
The good news is the FinOps Foundation framework gives us an amazing roadmap no matter what size organization you're working with. The biggest thing is to just start, even if it's with a small step.
Don't be afraid to crawl before you walk and walk before you run.
Right. Remember the crawl, walk, run model. It's a journey. Every organization's journey is going to be different.
So if someone's listening to this right now, just starting out on their FinOps adventure, what's one tangible action they can take today? Something they can do right now to get the ball rolling?
If I had to pick just one thing, it'd be to start building relationships. Go talk to someone in finance. Grab coffee with an engineer. Understand their perspectives and their challenges. Get to know the people you'll be collaborating with.
Build those bridges before you need to cross them.
Exactly. And remember, you're not alone in this. The FinOps community is amazing. People are always willing to share what they've learned and support each other.
Speaking of shared experiences, what are some of the challenges you've seen organizations face when implementing FinOps? What are some of the most common roadblocks, and how are people overcoming them?
That's a great question, and it's something I see all the time.
It's one thing to talk about breaking down silos and building bridges. It's another to actually do it. What are some of the real-world challenges you've seen companies face when they try to implement FinOps?
Oh, for sure. It's definitely not always smooth sailing. I think one of the biggest hurdles, even when people buy into the idea of FinOps, is that shift in mindset, making it an organization-wide change. It's easy to say break down silos, but actually changing ingrained behaviors, getting everyone speaking the same language, that takes real work, and honestly, it takes time.
It's like trying to steer a giant ship. It doesn't turn on a dime.
Exactly. It takes a coordinated effort to change direction. One thing that I've seen work really well is focusing on those quick wins. Find a pilot project, something where FinOps can demonstrate clear value fast. Those early successes can really win over skeptics and build momentum.
It's about showing them the value, not just telling them about it.
Absolutely. And speaking of seeing those results, another challenge I see is when organizations start scaling up their FinOps practices. What worked when they were smaller, maybe with just a few cloud accounts and manageable spending, it doesn't always translate when things start growing rapidly.
Like hitting a growth spurt, but for your cloud usage.
Ah, perfect analogy. And just like with a growth spurt, you got to anticipate those growing pains. Maybe that means investing in better automation tools to handle the increased complexity. Maybe it's about refining reporting and governance to stay in control, or even restructuring the FinOps team itself to match the organization's changing needs.
So it sounds like FinOps is never really done. It's about constantly adapting and improving, right?
You got it. It's a journey, not a destination, as they say. It's all about continuously learning, adapting, and tweaking those cloud practices to keep things running efficiently, both financially and operationally. And that's part of what makes it so interesting, in my opinion. This field is always evolving.
So for our listeners who are about to embark on their own FinOps journeys, what's the one piece of advice you'd give them?
That's a tough one. I'd say embrace the collaborative spirit of FinOps. Don't be afraid to reach out to others in the field, learn from their experiences and build those connections. This community is really supportive, and you don't have to reinvent the wheel.
It's about sharing those experiences, both the successes and the challenges.
Exactly.
This has been incredibly insightful. Thanks so much for sharing your expertise with us today.
My pleasure. Happy to be here.
And to our listeners, remember, building a successful FinOps practice takes time, and you don't have to do it alone. Start small, keep learning, and never be afraid to ask for help. Until next time on The Deep Dive, happy cloud cost management.